Well, good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining me for this small cap stock update. Certainly been an interesting start to 2026. I'm going to make quite a lot of forward-looking statements. I am going to cover both mining and biotech stocks. So there's the disclaimer. So pretty much the information contained in my presentation is general advice. It's not personal advice. The information is current or factual as to the best of my ability up until now. So if you're after any personal advice, get in touch with your financial advisor and or your psychic medium. But anyway, so that's the all-important advice disclaimer. Now, this is what the market looks like to me at the moment. Now, if you were, say, in your 20s, male, heterosexual, that's the type of stock selection you'd have at the moment. I normally put in a slide with Magic Mike's strippers for the ladies, but I neglected to do so on this occasion. So that's what the top of the market can look like when you're new to the game. And that can also look like the market after a decent correction. And you're thinking, which stocks should I be heavily invested in at this point in time? The key is to work out who can hold a conversation and who can cook a roast. So if I just get everyone to turn off your cameras, please, that would be appreciated, not to throw me right off. I'll have to start doing it for you. There we go. So anyway, that's the way I see the market at the moment, which certainly isn't a bad thing. It just means you've got a lot, you've got to get through. Who's not going to stack up with the fundamentals, who's going to love you and leave you, and who's going to take 80% of your money, which is unfortunately a lot of spec stocks these days. And here is one of my favorite sayings, arguably from Mark Twain, and it's all about what you don't know. It's what you know for sure that just ain't so. And I think that's quite pertinent when people look at internet forums about what's going on in certain stocks, certain conspiracy theories, allegations of manipulation. And I guess that's why a lot of people will deal with me because I know the truth and I'm not afraid to tell people the truth. Again, I'm getting people joining us with their cameras switched on. If you could switch them off, that would be fantastic. But I think that's probably one of the best quotes. And this quote was at the start of the movie I've probably seen about 30 times, The Big Short. So I think we all believe things we know for sure, but most of the time it just ain't so. So just bear that in mind throughout. Now, really, what's invigorated my client base and a lot of my followers has been Nyrada. Now, I floated this company at 20 cents. We floated on two lead drug programs, one for LDL cholesterol, the other one for traumatic brain injury. And what happened was the stock had a good run. It ran from about 20 cents into the 40s. We raised money at 26 cents. And then what happened, the LDL cholesterol small inhibitor got to a toxicity trial and it failed, and those shares dropped to 1.8 cents. So my clients who I put in at 20 cents in good faith, we're as full as a selective state school, watched their investment drop 92%. Then suddenly, the traumatic brain injury, we have potentially a new class of drugs. We had some of the most enthusiastic support on web forums, and the stock peaked at $1.43 and a half. Now, I openly disclosed that I was selling. I always like to sell some of my stock below the psychological point of $1. I put some selling on at 99 cents. Then my selling topped out at $1.28 and a half. I did have some clients get $1.40 for the stock. One client in particular who said, Tony, I'm listening to you. I've learnt my lessons, sold out of his entire stake and walked away with a cool $538,000. Now, don't feel sorry for this certain client, people. He bought Extract Resources because he liked the name. They accidentally found a shit ton of uranium and he made $1 million plus out of that. So my rationale for selling was that the market cap was getting towards $400 million. We were still early stage. It was running on momentum. This thing just wanted to go up every day. And I thought, well, it's done its job. I had some clients that bought this around cash backing, which was about 2.93 cents. And they had a perfectly good brain injury program. And can you believe that a stock could fall 92%, then essentially 70 bag from the lows? Now, I still hold 50,000 shares. I sold obviously pretty much all my holding, but I've kept them because this trial of the TBI drug that could have cardio protection is starting shortly, and we might see the share price start to re-rate. But this is the event that certainly put a spring in my step. It's allowed me to rotate some capital, invest in some ducted air conditioning, and pick up a few holidays. But I guess when a stock does its job, it's time to think of effective use of capital. Now, at $1.40 or anywhere over $1, a lot of good news had already been baked into the share price. And unfortunately, a lot of clients started to believe some of these more exotic posters on internet forums. But again, you have to take out risk reward studies all the way through. And I'm still hopeful that my 50,000 shares are going to pay off, even though I'm more than fully carried. So what I'm going to do now is start off running through my highest quality small cap stocks. And I must reiterate the point, guys, that all these stocks are at prices we're happy to buy out. Those non-clients on this call, you're not the 13th man on the deal team, to steal a quote from Wall Street. So I'm going to start off with Saturn Metals. This today dropped below 40 cents, despite coming out with some really great high-grade drill results from Titan. They recently raised money at 58 cents a share through Canaccord, which was actually, I think, late last year. Now, on my birthday last year, I actually was flown to site by Saturn Metals. We flew to Leonora. We then drove out in trucks to the potential mine site. It was very easy to get through. It's mainly flat. There is a bit of a hill, but there is Genesis have their camp in town. It's not far from there. And I learnt the scope that this resource has the potential to head towards 3 million ounces. Their economic study results were fantastic. It is a heap leach operation, but now we're getting some high-grade gold that's been discovered in between, which is a different style of gold from the low-grade heap leach. I have enormous faith in Ian Bambara. This is actually, the last I looked, was Headley Widdop and Line Selection's biggest position. And this is a high-quality stock. And if there was ever going to be a mini Capricorn, the code on that one is CMM, then this is it. So well down off the placement price. I noticed some ginormous sell orders in the market today, but I think that over the medium term that this represents exceptional value. Obviously, there's a bit of risk. The Australians aren't really used to heap leach, even though it accounts for about 60% of the world's gold production. So this is one of my highest quality stocks. And as far as I'm concerned, it's one of the strongest speculative buys I have at the moment. Morona Metals, well, this ran to 69 cents during the silver run to $121 US an ounce. The silver price is still tracking at about $79 to $80 US. Maronan did a large placement through Bell Potter and Veritas at 35 cents, plus a share purchase plan. And what's happened is the heat has certainly come out of the silver price, and the shares are now back towards that 35-cent placement price. Now, fortunately, Andrew Barker and Dean were at the Fremantle conference I went to last month. I went through all the fundamentals of the stock. We did have the MDL, the development license granted. It is a fantastic deposit. The pre-economic study they did on the starter zone just shows compelling economics. This project has two components. It has a silver lead component and a copper gold component. Plenty of exploration potential at depth. But what I really like about Maronan is the potential for it to be the subject of corporate activity that may or may not involve Cannington at some point. So none of that's in the papers, but I think this is a strategic asset that someone else might want. I'm aware that there has been a shareholder who's been emailing my clients and non-clients, and he's taking Maronan to court, alleging price suppression. All I can say to that is that markets have people have been able to buy and sell shares legally on the stock market since 1635, and I'll make no further comment to that. My next high quality stock is Red Metal. I must disclose that with my holdings on Chess and my clients on SRN and held elsewhere, we account for 13% of the entire issued capital of Red Metal. Red Metal hold 35% of Maronan. They have a 4.7 billion tonne rare earth oxide resource, 20 k's from Mount Isa. They also have some exploration joint ventures with BHP and some exploration joint ventures in their own right. Rob Rutherford was at the Fremantle conference. The one good thing about Red Metal is he always produces a high quality hat. So I took some hats from there, ran through the fundamentals. We looked at what could turn Pardue into an interesting project, and it could be some air core drilling, close up the spaces. I know from speaking with Rob over many years that he really likes Pernatti Lagoon, and this is one of those Hail Mary holes that Red Metal exposed their shareholders to. So the company's been listed since 2003. So we're coming up to 23 years as a listed company, and we still have sub 400 million shares or thereabouts on issue. Now, I have a lot of people come up to me at conferences and say that Red Metal has done jack shit. Well, the trading range since I've been involved has been 3.1 cents to 52.5 cents. If there's any corporate activity surrounding Maronan, all Maronan, in my view, has to do is get on with their job, and Red Metal should get a free carpet ride. So the share price now is down around 14 cents. It's slightly outperforming Maronan based on the fact that Maronan rallied from 35 cents to a high of 69 cents. And if anyone is alleging price suppression, they've done a terrible job since Maronan went from 19 cents. Oh, that's where Josh Pitt took out Crescat to a high of 69. So those price suppressors should be sacked. Kaiser Reef. Now, this is a relatively new recommendation for me. What I suggested my clients do is consider switching out of other gold stocks into this one. So Brad Valukas ran Oryaman, which collapsed down to about 2 cents, then was the subject of a takeover from Bright Star. Brad then moved to Kaiser Reef. Now, Kaiser Reef are producing gold at Henty in Tasmania. Looks like an annual run rate of about 30,000 ounces per annum. But the real cheesecake with Kaiser could be the exploration potential in Victoria, which cannot be discounted. So these have had a high in the low to mid 40s. They're currently trading at 30.5 cents. And I'm backing Brad Valukas to build this into a major gold company. So looking at two mid-sized gold companies that could become quite bigger, you've got to look at Saturn and you've got to look at Kaiser Reef. Brad's done a great job in cleaning this up. They still have plenty of scope to get production costs down. They do have the potential to toll treat gold in Victoria, and there's potential for major discoveries. So this looks like a fantastic medium to longer term growth opportunity. Now, I'm about to move on to something completely different. And if I have any people on this call with a relevant and up-to-date 708 certificate, I do have an opportunity in an emerging biotech company called Myopharm. I have participated in the first seed round at 25 cents a share. My 708 clients were offered that opportunity. I am involved in another seed opportunity, this time at 35 cents. Now, this is a triglitzer. It's a new oral drug for the treatment of type 2 diabetes. So if you are a 708, you have to have that certificate, which you can have an accountant sign off. Now, a 708 certificate, to get one, you have to have $2.5 million in assets. That could be a one-bedroom unit in Liverpool in Sydney, or you might actually own a garage in Balmain, or you can show that you've earned $250,000 a year for the last 2 years, and you can have an accountant sign off on that. So I cannot accept anyone that has a 70810 through another broker. It's all about know your clients, but you must be able to present that certificate. So if anyone's interested in getting the documentation, please just send me an email, tony@altocapital.com.au, and I'll forward you the docs on that one. But this looks very exciting. I was a seed investor in both Nyrada and Exopharm. Exopharm was the exosome company I floated that actually went to $1. Then the biotech market turned to shit, and now they are Entropy, which is the code is EMP. So feel free to send me that. Now, how we go about ensuring our speculative portfolios, you can do this through the BBUS. Now, that chart will show a huge spike during COVID. This is when this thing peaked. And you can see there a D for dividend. They actually paid out about 11%. And that came from trading profits of the futures. And more recently, they reconstructed on a 10-for-1 basis. So this chart doesn't make much sense. But as you can see, when the market got absolutely poleaxed during COVID, that the S&P 500 had a strong run thereafter, and we only really had some huge negativity in early to mid 2025 when Trump started to open up his trap about tariffs. We've since had that reconstruction, so now it's trading at around $3 equivalent after peaking at about $6.80 in 2025. So it's something to consider. With this product, those that prefer trading can elect to trade it, but I just think it's something that can ensure your portfolio if the world and the S&P 500 totally turn to shit. But as we know that the S&P 500, which does consist of 503 companies, was largely driven by the Magnificent Seven and technically the AI bubble, which is showing signs of struggling under huge weight at the moment. Now, I'm going to look at some other stocks. I'm just going to make some brief comments. Kingston Resources was one of my newest recommendations. That was held down by a fund called Delphi, which sold everything. We picked up a lot of stock around 11. This correction has seen it drop to 9.5 cents. They were one of the standouts of recent conferences. I really like this story. They have a production operation, gold and silver, in New South Wales. They're moving towards copper production. They're expecting another $10 million to come from the sale of Missima in July. Then they do have royalty potential there as well. And they are looking at expanding their production operations. So certainly one to look at. The market cap for a small producer is relatively low. They may be the subject of corporate activity. Andrew Corbett is one of the best presenters at most conferences, and I've followed it for years. And I think around these prices, a little bit more speculative than others, but I think it's well worth considering. Avecho, that formed part of my Stockhead video that was released today. They are in phase 3 trial for a cannabis CBD for insomnia. They have signed a licensing agreement with Sandoz. Sandoz are the largest generic drug manufacturer on the planet, and we're going to get some interim readouts in June this year. So we've got about 3 months to wait. I got my clients involved at about half a cent. The stock is trading between 1 and 1.1 cents. It depends on what day you have. But again, a phase 3 asset with this valuation and the upside potential, I think is certainly well worth some speculative funds. I've met Dr. Paul Gavin a number of times, and I think this is certainly one to watch. And there is one CBD product that's been approved by the FDA. And would you believe that one of the side effects of that has been drowsiness? Exactly what we want. So that code is AVE. Algaray Pharmaceuticals, well, that's AI-driven drug development combination, along with assisting in licensing and selling generic pharmaceuticals. That also was part of my Stockhead video today. Put it this way, guys, I'm not very good at singing, so Algary and Alchemy certainly can live together in perfect harmony. Alchemy have just sold some of their gold tenements to Forestania for about 5 million scrip. Market cap's about 12. They do have an iron ore joint venture, but I think probably the upside could come if they get some high-grade copper hits at Yellow Mountain, and you only have to look at the performance of Solstice. Code is SLS to see what it can do. But yeah, one to watch, trading at 0.9 to 1 cent. Algaray are trading at about 1.4 cents, and I mentioned the price range of the others. Eagle Mountain Mining is another really interesting stock. I got involved in this stock at 13 cents. I raised the money at 13 cents, and it ran to $1.40 based on the Oracle Ridge copper project in Arizona. Since then, that they got into all sorts of strife. They actually walked away from that project. The stock then collapsed. We're now trading at 0.7 of a cent to 0.8 of a cent. We do have a Japanese company, though, that are looking at going back into Oracle Ridge, and Eagle Mountain have the potential to be 20% free carried. Market response very muted. I think that what's happened with Eagle Mountain is there's been a lot of reputational damage done. I know that we certainly, when it ran to $1.40, we all had the chance to sell all our shares. I think, when a stock's having a huge run like that, sometimes it's hard to let go. But for those looking at a copper spec, I think you can do much worse than Eagle Mountain. Fabio Vergara, I actually rate. He's a very smart operator, and I'm sure he's looking at other projects for this company. So if we do go, if it does become binding, I think that frees them up to look at other projects. And with the heat out of the market, I think they're a chance at picking up some decent assets. Everest just came out with some great drilling results at Revere. This is certainly another interesting project, but we also had some results at Mount Dimer where there's toll treating happening, and they're going to pull some money from a toll treating campaign. And they also have a rubidium asset. Rubidium may be a replacement for cesium in some cases. It can be used in cells, might have some military applications as well. But the Mount Eden rubidium project is certainly one to follow. They are going to get some cash flow from the gold operations. It doesn't have much of a profile, but one to look at. They're trading at about 11 to 12 cents. Legacy Minerals is another stock that's been absolutely poleaxed by funds selling. They're going to have a revised scoping study out shortly on Mount Carrington. They do have a major joint venture over their Thompson Fold Belt projects as well. So this is a high quality explorer now trading at around 15 cents. It was up around 30. It has undergone somewhat of a correction, but I guess there has been a shitload of selling pressure in that one. I really rate Chris Byrne and Tom Wall to drive this company further. So if you're after a high quality explorer, certainly in that quality field, such as red metal, Legacy's one to look at. Code is LGM. Code for Everest is EMC, and the code for Eagle Mountain is EM2. Radio Farm, code is RAD. This has certainly been another disappointing biotech stock. They continually get research reports out of the US that value it at 2 to 3 times what they're trading at. They are going to be involved in imaging and drugs for prostate cancer. It has held on relatively well, even though only around 2 cents. We have Lantheus in there at initial investment price of 6. Lantheus hold, last I looked, around 15% of the company. That may have since been diluted. But again, if you're looking for a biotech that will trade volume, this is the type of biotech stock where you can change your mind 10 to 20 times a day on the fundamentals. Now, I'm about to stop the recording of this. So that's just a run through our quality stocks.